I'm Kelly.
And I'm Alton.
And we are
the Spider Ferns.
And y'all are listening to Word on the Street.
Yo!
Hey, what's up, my people? It's version 149 of the podcast. So I got a couple things to talk to you about. So anyways, first of all, we have Thomas Erwin of Niagara Moon and Talkin About The Passion on the podcast today. And we'll get to that in a moment, because I like to intro this thing with stuff about me and the podcast and everything that's been going down. Not everything, but some things that have been going down in my world, in the podcast world. So let's do it, shall we? Hopefully you don't mind hanging out with me. You know, there was a time that I was limiting these intros to 10 minutes, but now I just don't care, and nobody seems to really care. So I'm just talking, and if you don't want to hear me talk, then you can skip ahead. I'm guaranteeing this is going to be over a 10-minute intro. So just slide your little web player forward until you start hearing two voices, or hit that little 15-second button for a long time until you get to probably about 50, I don't know, at least 10 minutes, but we'll see. But anyways, okay, so let me start talking about what I wanted to tell you. First off, just about this podcast, this episode in general, or in specific. Again, this is the last one, actually second to last one, I think. Second to last one where I was using my old interface / setup, so that I was having technical difficulties with the recording a little bit in terms of it. I've narrowed it down to the microphone that I was using. So I'm retiring my microphone, so I need to buy a new one. So that's that. So you'll notice on my channel, my voice in this episode, it fluctuates in volume. It's a little weird, but I don't think it's too weird. It's too crazy. There's a little bit of, because I had to boost certain levels, you can hear some background little things, more like just digital things going on. So that's what's going on. So forgive me, but that's life, what happened. But hopefully from here on out, we'll have clean, squeaky clean recording. So that's that. Second thing to mention is, really, I'm just letting you know the state of the podcast at the moment. I'm recording this a little bit early. I'm recording this intro on Monday, putting it all together on Monday. And then because Wednesday, tomorrow I have to work. I drive for Lyft, and I have to put in a serious amount of hours tomorrow with Lyft. And then Wednesday, I'm driving from San Diego to LA to get a batch of recordings done. So yesterday, I drove from San Diego to LA to get a batch of recordings done. I have 3 people scheduled. Hopefully they all come through. And then I'm also going to watch the Furniture Girls, Seattle band. I had Stacy Meyer from the Furniture Girls on a long time ago with that Dave O'Leary. Sorry, guys, I mixed you up. I did have Dave Larson on, but I also had Dave O'Leary on. And he... when I did his, Stacy was there, so we did a kind of combo thing. And so, anyways, I'm going to go watch their band because they rock. They're in LA, and it just all worked out. It was a midweek thing, so it was easy for me to take off or, make it happen. And then while I was like, okay, while I'm there, I'm going to record some podcasts, and did the thing. So I'll probably be crazy burnout by the end of Wednesday night, but until that happens, I'm rocking. So I'm excited about it. So that's what's going on with some of the podcasts. That'll hold me out. Like if I get all 3, it'll hold me. I have like 3 more in the can. And then next week, I'm actually doing an all music podcast celebrating the 150th episode of doing this. 150 episodes. So versions, I like to call them. So check it out next week. It's going to be an all music one, a little bit different than I've done in the past. So you'll just have to tune in to find out, right? Am I right? What else did I want to talk about? I think that's really it for the state of the podcast stuff. One of the things I'm hopefully just want to let you know, and I'll talk about this more probably next week as well, because next week I'll be sprinkling in state of the podcast stuff within the music that I'm talking to. But basically is I'm looking for more support, and there's a specific kind of support. Sorry if there's too many S's right there, but a specific kind of support, which is I need to be made more aware of Northwest and Seattle musicians and bands that are on tour coming through San Diego, so I can reach out to them to contact them, because I've missed opportunities, so many that that I learned about after the fact. I'm like, come on, I want to help support this scene that we got. And, obviously I'm limited in doing that because I now live in San Diego, but there are so many musicians and artists and whatnot that do go on tour, and that would help me out, help me keep this going, but also hopefully help the community out by recording a podcast and archiving their story, and hopefully getting more people aware of all the rad, awesome music that happens. And bottom line is there's certain criteria for me that I need to, like, when I was in Seattle, I was a lot more selective about who I invited and who I wanted on the podcast. But if you're on tour, that all by itself is like, okay, I'm allowing you to be on the podcast because you're obviously taking your thing serious and you want to do it and you want to make it happen. So I want to support that. So yeah, so you're going to be on the podcast. So that's not an issue. It's just, I just need to know about it. And hopefully, I'm hoping, obviously, hopefully this thing that I'm creating is enough of a value for the community to say, hey, let's actually let's be proactive about it and get a hold of Zim and say, hey, we're going to be in town or whatever, and just kind of make it happen. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, so you can help me out by just shooting me emails here and there, or Facebook messages or Facebook posts on my wall, whatever. I'm on every social platform. Hey, did you know band X is going to be in San Diego? And I go, no, I didn't, thanks for letting me. Or yeah, I did, or whatever, maybe. So do that for me. That would be awesome. And as you know, I've been doing, I feel like I'm going to forgetting stuff, but anyways, that's what my video journals are for, to fill in all the blanks. But I've been doing okay, this is what I wanted to say. I've been doing Zim's tips on what I believe you need to do to help your career. And as I said, I think I said last week, it's tips in the sense that I know advice. So I recently had Wonder, the amazing Wonder, I hosted her for a night here in San Diego because she was on tour and she was doing her thing, played a show, checked it out. It was awesome. And then I recorded a podcast with her, and that'll come out in about a month from now. But she made a comment of like, don't take advice from anybody that you wouldn't, like basically the idea that isn't doing the thing that you want to be doing. So don't take advice from somebody who's just not doing the thing, that isn't at a level that you look up to, basically. And I realize maybe somebody does look up to what I'm doing. Awesome. Thank you very much for that. Maybe a lot of people realize as well that, I'm still at a very much grassroots level myself with a lot of the career, a lot of things I'm doing. However, I've been studying this pretty intensely for a while, and I'm on the journey. So the advice that I'm giving, I realize I may not be of the status that you need to have to take advice, but I challenge you, try it. Tell me I'm wrong after you've tried it. Nobody's telling me you're wrong now, but I realize the position I'm in because I'm all in on this stuff that I've been talking about. So if you disagree and you're not doing it, it doesn't matter to me. If you disagree, you've tried it and said, look, Zim, you're off, then I'd be like, okay, you're right. If you try it and go, oh, Zim is actually onto it, he knows what he's talking about, then you're like, you understand where I'm coming from. So take that. I don't know. I just wanted to put that out there to the universe, so to speak. So the last few weeks I've been talking about, let's catch us up again, shall we? First week I talked about your audio has to be dope as can be. So number one thing, make sure your audio is just crack-a-lackin'. Number two was put yourself in the position of looking at your career as a musician through the lens of an entrepreneur. Basically, how hard are you willing to work for what you want? Number two was going on tour. So important. Go on tour. You got to go on tour. I know, polarizing topic. There's so many ideas around it, but I told you my ideas around it. Go on tour. Next thing was just social media in general, and I told you the places that I think are the most important. And number one was Facebook. Number two was YouTube. And then I talked about some other stuff. And then last week, I talked about Facebook in specific, like what around that works. You could think about as a grassroots level, as different levels, what my experience with and all that stuff. Today, I just want to give you the second part of that, the second most important part. I want to go a little bit deeper on YouTube. So why is YouTube so important? First of all, what I already mentioned when I talked about it before was YouTube is the second largest search engine there is. The first being Google, right? So a lot of people search for things on YouTube. So learn, what is it called? Search engine optimization, SEO. You have to be on point with your SEO content as well. So how you title your YouTube videos, all that stuff, so that possibly what you're making will get the eyes of the people searching for stuff. And in the context of being a musician, I firmly believe, so the other part of that is it's a way to not replace, but enhance, add to, there's another word I'm looking for I can't find, but the whole idea of touring, like what else can you do? You have to meet people where they are nowadays. And obviously touring physically lets you do that, but virtually you can do that through the internet. And one of the best ways to do that with the current state of the internet is through video. Video is super, super important to get an audience, get people interested in what you're doing. They want to see what you look like and what your live shows are all about, all different things are about. So there's a selection of content that you can produce for Facebook in lieu of playing live shows, going on tour, and things like that will help the entire package. And some of those ideas definitely is get kick-ass recordings, video recordings of your live show. You want to be able to show people what it is that you do live so that they can go, I want to be in the audience for that. So if your live show is not a kick-ass, then something needs to, and kick-ass, there's a broad definition of kick-ass because not every show is all about pyrotechnics and lasers and all that stuff. If you're a singer-songwriter, kick-ass could be, does it feel like you're connecting with the audience? Kick-ass could be, there's so many different ways to put it, but just make sure your audio sounds great. Make sure you visually, you put some effort into what you look like, and whatever that effort means to you, there's a wide spectrum of that. But just the visual representation, does it entice somebody to say, I want to keep watching this? And does it entice them then to say, I want to actually go, I want to be in the audience for that the next time it happens? So consider that. I mean, that all by itself is just years of figuring it out, talking to people, working with people. There's so many just there's so many practices, techniques to capture great live and great video. So that's something to look into, and that applies to everything else I'm going to say. So that's kind of one of the main key points of how to curate your YouTube channel. The other key aspect is kind of the behind the scenes stuff. Like I do with my video journals, it's just like easy content. It can be 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It can be as long or short as you want it to be. There's a lot of arguments and a lot of ideas around how long your content should be on YouTube. I'm on the side of it doesn't matter. As long as it's good, people will eat it up. And as long as you have a fan base that wants it, they don't care how long it is. So, whatever. That's where I'm at. So if there is anybody that's interested in the behind the scenes and all that stuff for what you're making, it's great to do. Even if there isn't an audience for it, it's great to do because eventually there will be, and they want to know how it is you became who you are once you start to grow and documenting. So there's again, back on the entrepreneurial kind of angle of this, there's the guy that I listen to all the time is named Gary Vaynerchuk. I highly recommend you check him out. His big thing is document over create. You don't have to, every piece of video content you put on your YouTube channel doesn't have to be a creation, like something that you made that's a standalone thing. It can just be what did I do today? What did I do this week? What did I do this month? Document the process, getting ready for shows, talking about how you're writing songs. Like document what you're doing over trying to create a show, a story all by itself, if that makes any sense. Hopefully that makes sense. So document versus create. So, and that I firmly believe that because people just want content. People want what's going on. People want to stay relevant to what your career, what's going on with you. So highly recommend doing regular content, weekly, even daily, if it works for your schedule. Put something out, put a video piece of content out on your YouTube channel about your process, about document your story. So that's another thing. Another great thing, really great thing, is to put out your music, and your music, like aside from the live show, but like content that's specifically designed for YouTube itself, video content of you making music that's specifically designed for YouTube. And that could be either live performances of your original music, live performances of your of covers and stuff, because that's super hugely popular these days. And obviously, the more contemporary songs you can do, the songs that are popular in the moment, the songs that are getting searched for right now, and if you can make covers that of those songs, you should. I think this is like, I wish I was doing more of this, but it's just hard to fit it all in. But if you have the time to do it, I can't stress enough how importantly awesome and good for your career it would be to make versions of current songs and just put out a really great video of them, audio, video, and do that as often as you can, and then sprinkle in your originals in there as well, because that will open up a lot for you. And it's proven. It's a proven way. There's so many artists on YouTube that are doing that, and that'll help hopefully cross-pollinate your other content, your original content, the documentation I was talking about, and other things like that. And then another thing is just music videos, straight up music videos of your music, stories, whatever it may be, artistic creations around your music. Also, it's be super great of you to as well put just like your songs, every one of your songs, original songs, on YouTube as like just an audio video, right? There's no real video with it. It's just maybe your album cover and then the song in its entirety on YouTube. So that's a collection of things. I'm sure there's tons more, but obviously this intro is getting pretty long now, so we want to talk to Thomas. But the last thing I'll add to this whole YouTube, the importance of YouTube, is it's a way you can actually start making money off your music. If you can generate enough of an audience, get your subscriber count up and get your view count up. Obviously, you can't monetize your covers, but you can monetize your original content. And if you're doing it right, you're enticing the people that are watching your covers and stuff to watch your original content as well. So you can actually start making money off of YouTube. That's would help your career, right? The money helps this whole process. So it's obviously a place that's should be seriously considered when you're looking at what should I do with my career as a musician, and where should I put my energy. Because the last piece, I'll wrap it up with this idea. More and more of content, more and more of people are moving toward getting their entertainment content, everything they do, through the internet. It's just going to keep going. Of course, there's always going to be people that'll go find the live thing. There's always going to be people that'll go out and experience that. But it's just going to grow. The amount of people that have mobile devices and whatnot and can just quickly and easily look up your music and go, oh, they're just browsing YouTube and doing the thing or whatever, and they've come across you, or they found a link that you published on another, on Facebook or whatever, and they're like, oh, let me check out this YouTube video, things like that. There's so much more of that happening. It's just going to keep rising. The more you're practicing it now to help you in the future I can't stress it enough. So if you have any questions for me around it, I'd love to hear from you. If you agree with me, I'd love to hear that. If you disagree with me, I even would love to hear that even more. Go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/We're on the Street podcast. Comment on the post of this podcast, and we'll talk about it. Let's continue this conversation through Facebook, because that's what it's all about. All right, let's get into this conversation with Thomas Erwin. Let's do this. Hey, Thomas.
Hello.
How are you today?
A little drowsy.
Yeah, me too. I'm honestly exhausted.
Yeah.
I've like we were talking before the mic's on. I've been here for a week, about a little more, and you're my last of this batch of podcasts I've been doing in Seattle. So I forgot to tell you one thing. I forgot to tell you is when this will publish, and it'll be out like in 2.5 months or so from now.
Okay. Yeah, you got a lot to go through first.
So just be aware of that as we're talking. So Thomas Erwin, let's mention the two things that you're involved with most present are what?
So my main musical project is Niagara Moon, which, depending on the occasion, is either me on the keyboards or with a live band, or I do a lot of electronic production as well. So that's my main musical outlet. So that's my original music. And then I also do a podcast pretty similar to this, actually, called Talkin About The Passion,
Yeah.
where I interview different independent musicians and I play some of their music.
Yeah.
So
And that's actually, that second piece, the talking about the passion, is what I discovered first about you, and it got me super excited. And I was like, oh, somebody else is doing a podcast. It's kind of like, and it's like, I love it when there's more to the music in a sense than just the music.
Yep. Yeah. That was something I was figuring out
Yeah.
over the past year. Like, just as a musician, I want to do more than just make recordings and just put them on the internet and leave it at that. That doesn't really feel like enough. And I mean, I wanted to make new connections with musicians in this area because I only moved to Seattle last fall.
Okay.
So it just seemed like it would be good for a lot of different things at once. I get to meet people and be a way to kind of promote my deal and hear other people's music.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly, I mean, I relate because that's a very big portion of why I do this podcast.
Yeah.
It's like the whole networking piece of it is there. So I'd love to get nerdy about that and just kind of really talk about it. So, and that's kind of where I want to start. I'm thinking this one we'll split up into kind of a 2 sections. Maybe the first half I'd like to start with the podcast and just kind of nerd out. I get real nerd. I like to get real nerdy, like real detail as I can. Hopefully I can ask the right questions and we can turn this into a great conversation about podcasts and music and all that stuff. And then maybe the second half we can do the music. But one thing I do like to do as we start off, I'm kind of doing this in a little different order than I normally do. Since we've did 2 big bullet points, podcast and music, is there anything else significant about Thomas Erwin that you would like to make sure came up, or that just an idea that maybe we won't get to, but we could get to?
Good point there. Before I started Niagara Moon, which I only started about 2 years ago, I was living in Japan for like 3 years, and I was leading a band there called Otarehan. So that was my previous musical project. That's where I started writing songs and playing gigs and doing the whole kind of singer-songwriter thing.
Cool.
So it's not so relevant to now, but that's another project that I try to push once in a while.
Well, imagine in the music part of you, who you are, it's informed you musically, being not only in Japan, but also that project individually, and how, because it's always, isn't it true, like, sometimes that all our musical projects as we evolve along are either reactions or some kind of, like, informed by what came before, because we either don't want to do it anymore or we want to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's all connected.
Yeah, for sure. So, and then the next thing, definitely, I always like to start off every podcast was the theater of the mind. And I'm in your apartment. Yeah. So do you want to describe for the people, like, so we can bring them in, so they can pretend they're sitting here with us?
So we're in a glorious, lavish, 350 square foot, 1-bedroom in the U District. Yeah. On the top floor, walk up. It's basically shaped like a hallway. Yeah. Just with a wall dividing the bedroom and the kitchen, living room. Studio, that's all one space. Sitting at my table. This is where we do all the Talking About The Passion episodes, or most of them at least.
Yeah, for sure. The pictures, you post pictures, and it makes it definitely gives an illusion that there's a deeperness to it.
Yeah, no, it's pretty cozy here.
Yeah. It's awesome, though. It's like it really relates to an idea that I firmly believe in, which is use what you have. Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. It's like, and this embodies that for me. It's like, you know what? We're here. I got this space. I want to do a podcast. I want to make music. Yeah. Let's do it.
I mean, it's certainly more room than I had living in Japan. So I'm kind of used to it by now. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, that's good to know too. I feel like my mic is not acting normal, but it'll be fine. We're fine. We're doing it good.
Ready?
All right, so podcasts. You already kind of gave a little bit of, like, the overview of some reasons why you did it, why you wanted to start. So I wanted to ask, are you from the Northwest originally, or did you come here?
So I am originally from Western Massachusetts.
Oh, okay. What and then you in your travels went to Japan. Yeah. And then decided you were done with whatever you did in Japan. Well, what were you doing?
So I was a Japanese major in college, and I
Okay.
studied Japanese for years, even before I enrolled in college. And then I did study abroad.
Yeah.
First I traveled in Japan for a few months, and then I decided I want to live in Kyoto. And then I studied abroad in the Kyoto area for a year, and then I wanted to live there longer, so I kind of had a year off, and then I transferred to a university there just as a regular status student.
Okay.
And then I spent another year there, but then I was like, I've had my fill. Like, I'd like to go back to Western civilization. And then I came back to Massachusetts to just finish the last year of my degree.
Okay.
And then after graduating, I came out to Seattle to pursue music more.
Okay. Because, and like, well, this is a great question that I like, is self-indulgent somewhat for me.
Yeah.
But now that you're here, basically, like, what was it? So you wanted to come to Seattle to pursue music. Did you have friends or anything here at all?
I couch surfed
Okay.
for a week before I came out here. Made a couple friends through that. Also, I moved out here with my girlfriend, and she actually had a few friends in the area.
Okay.
But beyond that, I just got a good impression when I came here, and I like Sub Pop and KEXP.
Okay.
It seemed like as good a fit as any.
So that was your impression or knowledge of the scene in a sense. It was like,
Yeah.
that's what your filter was like, and so it kind of said, okay, that seems like a place that I want to go.
Yeah. I mean, I also visited Nashville.
Oh, you
in,
did?
in
Okay.
May, but that was already too hot for me, and I got this wicked sunburn on my neck that lasted like 8 months. I was
Sure.
like, God, the South is not for me. I can't handle the heat.
Cool.
So I like 60 and cloudy. I
Mhm.
don't mind it.
So based on your impression of of what you were coming into in Seattle, has anything changed based on the initial impression versus now you live here,
Yeah.
you're getting to know the scene?
Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, there's definitely a few things that ended up feeling different once I was living here. I mean, I definitely had the feeling now I'm going to be priced out in a few years. But I'm also okay with that. Like, when I first came to Seattle, it was a beautiful summer evening, and I just fell in love with the place, and I thought Capitol Hill was so cool.
Yeah.
But now I like staying north of Lake Union at this point.
Okay.
Just sticking to, like, Ballard, Wallingford, Fremont, just a little more laid-back environment. And I think the music scene is even more supportive and friendly and inviting than I was expecting. And
Cool.
the venues I've played at have been really great. So I wasn't expecting it to be so unlike the East Coast in that regard. I guess
Okay.
people are just really
Well,
kind of mellow.
what has been a significant support? Like, support is actually a big thing for me. Like, I love to explore the idea of support.
Yeah.
And how have you felt that support, like you said?
Just all the musicians here, I mean, even the ones that are getting to a pretty high level and, really hard working, everybody's just really approachable and friendly, and you feel like people are really making connections with each other and not just doing whatever the LA thing is.
Yeah, whatever that is. I
Yeah.
don't know yet. I'm going to find out, hopefully.
Down in SoCal.
Yeah. Yeah, learning about it. That's awesome. That's really great. And so it seems to me like you had a presence of mind enough to know, well, I want to develop the community around, I want to find out about it. I want to develop it. You've been able to get out there and play some shows. So you've actually been, and then somewhere along the line, you were like, let's do this podcast thing. So walk me through the kind of just the initial, like how did you get to that point?
Yeah. Well, back in maybe it was October of last year, I was invited to come on a podcast called Music City Spotlight.
And where's that out of?
So he's down, not quite Renton,
Mm.
but kind of south of the main part of Seattle. This guy, Sal Bella, and his girlfriend, Shannon Whalen, they do a podcast, Music City Spotlight. They will record you kind of playing in their living room.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty good about that. They have a good sound setup. And then they interview you for, I don't know, half hour, 40 minutes. So I did that. I think I did that a couple times, and that was really fun. But then I was also thinking, like, there's no reason I couldn't do something like that. I mean, I'm not really equipped to record people, but I wouldn't mind just having a format where I can talk to a musician that I've been curious about, say somebody I see perform and I enjoy their music and I kind of want to get to know them more. It seemed like a perfect format to do that. So I knew I just had to have some mics and be able to record, and then I like to edit and try to get the levels and the sweet spot, all that kind of nerdy audio engineering stuff. And then just have a platform to share people's music, because there's a lot of people here that make really good music. And like me, they don't think so much about the PR side of things.
Yeah.
And I'm still figuring all that out, but it just seemed like a really quick, accessible way to do that for people. And then it gets my name out there, it gets their name out there. It just seemed like a win-win.
So with this impression of quick and accessible,
Yeah.
has that remained? Do you still feel it's quick and accessible?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of a stickler about editing for my podcast. That
Sure.
always ends up being a few hours. But
Yeah.
the nature of the work I do right now,
Yeah.
I can kind of multitask. So
Okay.
it's perfect. Like, my schedule is just really accommodating. I can keep that up.
Okay, I see.
So that's been good.
So your livelihood work,
Yeah.
what pays the bills?
Doesn't take too much
Yeah.
time away from making the podcast the way I want it to be.
Okay. Well, yeah, because, I mean, it's similar to me as well. I was like, I do my Lyft driving and I do all my editing of the podcast in between when I don't have rides and things like that.
Right,
so
right.
That's awesome. But as far as the actual production going into it, what has anything shifted? So you're basically at the point of recording this podcast.
Yeah.
You're like 20.
Well, I just released my 23rd episode this
23rd.
week. I maybe have like 3 or 4 others in the can.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm in the mid-20s mark.
Yeah,
I've been
yeah.
doing it I started in February of this year, so it's been a few months.
And I think I'm not sure what the cutoff is, but the pod fade. I thought like 20 is like the pod fade threshold.
I've heard that, yeah.
Yeah. So
Either
made
you
it-
stick with it or you
Yeah.
kind of give up by episode 20. But yeah, if I was doing a podcast where it's just me talking the whole time,
Yeah.
I don't know how you go beyond like 10.
Yeah.
But the great thing is I have a new personality
Yeah.
on each time, so it's always different.
For sure. So tell me a little bit about within these 23 episodes.
Yeah.
You've started it. You had your vision.
Yeah.
Has anything changed or evolved with the vision based on actual practical experience of doing it now?
I don't think the vision's changed. I've just gotten more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Like I'm starting to understand the flow of an interesting conversation a little bit more. And initially I wanted to get all my friends in there, the people that I'd be most comfortable talking to. And now I'm a little more at the point where I can approach people that maybe I don't know as well, or it feels like more formal a situation, but
Sure.
I feel a little bit more prepared for that now.
Yeah. So along with the let's just describe your show a little bit more. Along with the idea of exposure and networking and things
Right.
like that, what would you define the format of it? Like,
So, I mean, the structure of the show is I have my little bio intro for whoever the guest is. And that's pretty short. And then I'll play a song of theirs so you know the style of who you're going to listen to. Gives you some idea of what you're in for. And then I have like a 30 to 40 minute conversation. I mean, it can be a little longer than that, but generally that sort of length. I talk to the person, or sometimes it's 2 people, sometimes it's three people, but about their one project. And then after that, I do kind of a little wrap up and play either 1 or 2 more songs of theirs. And in terms of like the topics of the conversation, I try to get their story as a musician. I get their background, their influences. I try not to go too kind of hardcore music talk and talk about too much stuff that a non-musician wouldn't understand.
yeah, sure.
But I really, because I'm a musician and I know to some extent what it's like to make music, just be involved in that process and what it kind of means to be a musician nowadays. So I kind of come at them from that angle. But I welcome tangents always. The less questions I have to ask, the better. I feel. And yeah, my big inspiration for kind of interview style, I really like the WTF podcast.
Okay. Yeah.
But instead of being Mark Maron, a comedian talking to other comedians, I'm Thomas Erwin, a musician, just talking to other musicians.
Yeah.
That's where I'm kind of coming at it from, though.
And as a practical place of the conversation? Like, do you write a list of questions down? Do you just do free form? Like, how do you decide?
So I have this kind of superstitious thing now. I like to have 13 questions.
Okay.
And generally in the order of how I think the flow would go.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the less questions I have to ask, the better. Those are just there as a safety net.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes I've just winged it and it goes okay. So, I mean, that's partly because I'm getting more comfortable with interviewing.
Yeah, I found when I started mine, I had this whole big list of questions for that safety net kind of idea.
Yeah.
But what ended up happening was just people would start talking about the question that I had on my list before I asked it.
Yeah, and they're like, great, I don't have to artificially insert it into
sort of,
this.
or it made it like happen too quickly. So it made because I do, I'm shooting for an hour here. And so it's like if they start rapid fire through their ideas, I'm like, okay, how can I pull the brakes on so we can actually get into more details about different ideas?
Yeah, I guess if you're going for an hour, you gotta my mouth just flopped out of my face.
It's on the table.
If you're going for an hour, you gotta go at a slower rate than I'm prone to go at. Like I just get a feeling like after that length of time, I'm like, all right, that's a good summation.
Yeah,
that's what we're going for. I'm not trained to talk at length and be super interesting. I'm not a comedian or anything. I just want to, keep your attention for about the length of an album, and then I dip.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
But if I have guests that just keep on going and they got momentum, I mean, I'll let that ride out too.
Is there a tone you go for?
Casual. Just try to be friendly. I want as much as possible for both of us to forget that we're being recorded.
Yeah.
And we're just having an interaction, and we're talking about something that we're both interested in. We're talking about the passion. So I kind of leave it at that. For sure.
Have you had any experience so far of like external reaction from it? Like has anything informed you based on that reaction, or expectation you had going into it that changed because of some external influence?
I mean, I'm still amazed anybody's listening to it. That's pretty surprising to me. I just figure, I'm going to get the, as we were saying before, you're going to get the moms of whoever you have on the episode, and maybe that's going to be it. But no, it seems like there's a lot of randos out there picking up on it. So that's good
cool
to know. It's not just people directly connected to this band or that band or my mom or whatever.
Yeah. How do you find out about the randoms?
I just get emails once in a while.
I do.
Get people liking the Facebook page.
Yeah.
Get followers on Instagram, all that cliche social media stuff.
Yeah. So it's like, do you have goals around it?
Make a lot of money on Patreon. I want, it's fun for me to do, so I want it to keep being fun, and I want to talk to more and more musicians that I really admire, and I want to have those moments like, I can't believe I'm talking to X.
Yeah.
And just, it's a cool conversation. Like, I really enjoy that. I learn a lot, people talking to me about how they make music and how they promote their music. That's just all really informative to me. So I don't want to think too far in the future. I just kind of want to take it one step at a time. And yeah, like because in addition to having episodes where you interview people, and then I also will occasionally release a Just the Music compilation where I feature additional songs from artists that I've had on the show. I mean, I do have plans for the podcast to also occasionally be a vehicle for me to share my own music as I continue making new songs and stuff. I don't know if I would go full like song exploder style on it and break down every little creative decision I made as I explain the song, but just it's another platform for me to share my music, because there is a lot out there. There's blogs and all that, but just they get inundated with a million emails a day, and it just be nice for me to feel like I can just take control and do my own thing. I mean, I'll reach out to blogs too, but I got lots of hours in the day. I want to fill it up with stuff that I can do myself.
Yeah, for sure. And part of what I've heard too, based on listening to yours so far, is like you're very, I mean, it should be self-implied, but the supporting the community, right?
Yeah.
Aspect of it. But you also give shout outs to other podcasts that you like.
Yeah.
How do you go about discovering the other ones and what makes you? What are your decisions that you base on your shoutouts? You know?
Yeah, well, I always want to give shout outs to podcasts that I genuinely enjoy.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, I got to do one for yours pretty soon.
It's all good.
I've only done a few so far,
Yeah.
but like, I don't know, sometimes I'll just go to the top 200 podcasts and find the ones that are music related. Or I'll come across stuff on SoundCloud or whatever. I mean, I like to take long walks, and I do the dishes, and I cook, and I do all these things that I can have headphones on while I'm engaged in them. So I want to fill that time up with podcasts. So I'm always on the lookout for music podcasts where I can, learn about different stuff. And yeah, I don't know. I haven't put a super amount of thought into it so far, but.
How long have you been a podcast consumer?
Well, it all started out where I was on a trip to Singapore to do some visa stuff when I was living in Japan. This was at the beginning of 2014, and I was stuck there longer than I would have wanted because I didn't realize how long that student visa process would take. I went to Singapore because I had a friend there, but so I was staying there longer than I wanted, and I was like, after a certain point, I can just walk around and listen to something on my headphones, and I got tired of that just being music all the time. So I got like a David Sedaris audiobook or two, and I was like, this is great. I'd like to hear more just funny people talking. And then I got into the comedy of Bill Burr, and he puts a podcast. Well, now he puts a podcast out once every 2 weeks. No, he puts out 2 episodes per week. That's what I meant to say.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm a big fan of comedy as well, so it started as completely separate from music. I liked listening to funny guys, funny stories on my headphones. I like Risk, the storytelling podcast, and a bunch of others. So that's kind of where it started for me, and then I realized that there's some pretty interesting music-related podcasts as well. So then I started listening to those.
Nice. I had a brain fart.
It happens.
Yeah. One of the ideas, it was a great segue to what you were just saying, but I forgot now, but I have something written down, so we'll go with that. Based on this idea, and I'm wondering how it relates to what I do with mine as well, but you mentioned a little bit about talking to other musicians and stuff. Have you had the experience of being presented with ideas that then you like cherry pick out and go, that's something I haven't thought of. I'm going to use that kind of.
You mean in a musical sense?
Yeah.
Or just,
yeah.
Oh, just in terms of making music.
Or career-wise, or
career-wise.
Yeah.
Okay, so
or idea-wise.
Just ideas. Well, I mean, the idea for the podcast was totally from that guy Sal Bella, Music City Spotlight, and I even kind of wanted to check with him before I started. Like, is this town big enough for the two of us? Like, can I do this thing and it doesn't interfere with you?
Oh yeah,
doing your thing. But yeah, he was all cool with it.
No, well, I meant when in yours, I guess. Talking about when you have a guest over.
So when I have guests on. Yeah. There's a guy I had. Can I swear on this?
Yeah, totally.
So there's a guy I had called Shit Ghost.
Okay.
AKA Samuel Orson. I had him on for episode 18, and he's like one of the more kind of serious-minded, disciplined musicians that I've talked to.
Okay.
Like he went to business school before he decided to do the psychedelic music thing, but he's just really focused and deliberate with his like creative decisions, like just the way he develops his projects, like this Shit Ghost thing. He has a whole character for it, and he's doing like a zine, and he works with a bunch of artists, and like his live show is really dialed in. And then he also does this crazy like 120 days of music challenge where he's like writing and recording a new song every day on his guitar. He has this amazing style of playing guitar. And he like live streams his performances, and he's just like, just seeing how you can be that hardworking and go all out, and that's like totally cool, and you can do it. So that was pretty inspirational for me. I haven't been making new music at that pace so much recently, but that kind of got me thinking about, well, I like I made instrumental music before I moved to Japan when I was like a teenager and stuff, and kind of more electronic stuff, and I could kind of get back into that, and that's something I could do on a regular basis.
Sure.
It's a good exercise on making melodies, and so sometime, I don't know when, I want to start generating a lot more music like that, like coming up with stuff on the piano.
Okay.
More instrumental music. But just the idea of like being really consistent with your musical content and then figuring out how to release it in a way that continues to engage people. And so just kind of thinking of it in those terms where you're really anticipating how an audience is going to receive it, but without feeling kind of fake and LA and phony about it. It's like still a creative decision, and it's okay to think like that as a musician. You don't have to be like walled up in your own like artsy sound world and not thinking about what's going on outside of it. For sure.
That's a pretty perfect segue into the more music oriented part of this conversation. However, I do want to just ask you if there's anything about the podcast that we haven't touched on that you'd like to present or have out to make sure people know.
I mean, it kind of speaks for itself. Just tune in every Wednesday, talking about the passion.
That was the thing I wanted to know. Where do you want people to listen to it? Like, do you have a preferred platform?
Well, while I thought I was still eligible for getting into the new and noteworthy section of music podcasts on iTunes, I wanted people to listen on iTunes or like through their iPhones or whatever. But now I don't care as long as you hear it. I don't think it matters at this point. It's mainly on iTunes and SoundCloud, and then just for the heck of it, I'm putting it on YouTube as well, but it's still just audio only. But either iTunes or SoundCloud is cool. It's also on Stitcher and wherever else. I don't know,
all the
20 different places I can't keep track of.
Cool. Well, that's awesome. That was a good. I feel like that was pretty good. If anything else comes up as we're talking that you wanted to bring up about the podcast, feel free to drop it in.
Sounds good.
But like I said, we started to go into the music part of your exploration as a creative being and whatnot. So we're at the halfway point. So let's put in a song and then we'll get into the rest of the conversation. So what do you want to do first?
You mean in terms of a song?
Yeah.
So my album that came out in January of this year, 2017, the album is called Eating Peaches. And then there's the song Eating Peaches. I think that would be a good one to play.
Okay. The title track.
Yeah.
And then Niagara Moon is the
band name.
The band name. All right. So here's Eating Peaches off of Eating Peaches by Niagara Moon.
There you go.
It's gonna snow. If you will remember that my hits have been September and I never like to go below. I could sit here eating peaches on 1,000 dirty beaches, but I really wish the wind would blow. From having fun, still I can't help but to feel guilty, looking for favors when there's nothing left to solve, but I don't care if it doesn't show. Hey, we can do it if you still have any magic left in that paper bag, creating memories from nothing at all. We can make up for it as we go. I was high up on the mountain fishing in a water fountain, but I guess I'm making too much noise. I'm using all my power in my casual attire. Yes, I treat them like a bunch of toys. So you think you're high and mighty when I Yes, I believe in magic, but it's not the kind of magic that the human brain could understand. Creating memories from nothing at all, we just make up for it as we go. And I could never stop myself from having fun, still I can't help but to feel guilty. Looking for favors when there's nothing left to say, but I don't care if it doesn't show.
Cool. So as we learned, you have this whole podcasting life and you're also a musician. The one connecting point I wanted to find out
Yeah.
between the two is, how much do you distinguish a difference between them, or do you see it as part of the same entity? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I do have the so-called podcast homepage on the website for my music,
Yeah.
so they're kind of blended in that way. But they're still kind of separate projects
Okay.
to me. I mean, Niagara Moon, that's music. That's like my original songs, and that feels still pretty separate an endeavor from producing interviews.
Yeah.
But like I said, talking about the passion can be one way to kind of promote Niagara Moon, promote the music that I make with that. So
No. Yeah, I mean, I can relate because that's very similar to Word
Yeah,
on the
what you
Street.
do.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. For sure. I love it. So with this whole music, so in this music conversation, the one thing that I'm really intrigued by is, you've probably started to recognize that there's just a ton of music that happens in Seattle. It's
Yeah.
just a ridiculous amount.
Too much.
Too much. Yeah. It's like, so
there are a lot of really good bands. So.
yeah. So I try to put the people that are making this in the scene, like I try to figure out where they fit, like,
Yep.
or I try to see where they think they fit.
Mhm.
I pose the question of, and maybe you heard me say this already, but I do this like XY axis type of
Yeah.
how you fit. There's the
You
Y
had a video
axis.
about it, right? The 4 different kinds.
Oh,
of-
that's the different thing.
Oh, that's a different thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's like it's all there, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's a different kind of idea. But yeah, it's similar though. But like on the Y-axis is where the genre, what you consider yourself a genre,
A genre.
genre-wise,
Yeah, I always have trouble with that.
Yeah, everybody does, it seems. And then on the X-axis, the horizontal axis is like the kind of goal spectrum. It's like, do you just want to stay in your bedroom on one end,
Right,
or
right.
do you want to get out there and tour and
Yeah,
take
yeah.
over the world on the other extreme, right? And usually a good place to start, in a way, and because you're somewhat new to the scene, this can be more of a projection than where you are right now so much, and we can look at it that way.
Right.
But you say you've been out there playing some shows, you've been able to access the scene, which is awesome. What is it that you hope to do now? Like when you came to Seattle, what was your hope with your musical career? What are you accomplishing at this point, and then where do you want to take it?
Okay. So yeah, I'm 23. I'm still figuring out a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't think I'd get this far with music. I didn't think I'd have this much time to still work on it and figure out the scene and all that. So
Yeah.
I'm just kind of figuring out stuff as I go. But I'll go at stuff one thing at a time, I
Yeah.
suppose. So as far as touring goes, I like playing locally. I got my guys, the traditional drums, bass, guitar, and then I'm on keyboards and singing.
Mm-hmm.
The idea, this has been one of my thoughts recently, the idea of taking all that gear, all those dudes, schlepping that around this venue and that venue around the country, that doesn't sound like a good fit for me. I don't know how people do that. Like, I do eventually want to tour and play a lot, like at a certain point in my life. I
Yeah.
want to make time for that. But I would either want to do that by myself, just like singing and playing the keyboard, or if I was doing that with like a singer in addition to me and we're doing harmonies,
Yeah.
or if it's like just me and a guitar player or something. Like I want to have a setup that's just really easy and portable. Like I really envy stand-up comedians that way. It's
Yeah.
just you, and then you don't need to bring anything. That
Yeah.
sounds awesome to me.
Yeah.
Sorry for the fridge noise there.
That's
I don't know
fine.
how much these microphones pick that up.
It's
but,
real. I love the realness.
Yeah.
Like we're in a real live space.
Yep. We sure are. So, in terms of touring, I never want to be in a situation where it's like I'm in this van and we're spending all this money on gas and we got to schlep all this heavy crap that might get stolen at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And then like the whole like sound process, or I should rephrase that, the whole like sound check thing at a venue, that if that's going to be hit and miss because there's a lot of different factors, like that just all sounds pretty stressful to me. Most of the time I see a show, I'm not happy with how with how it sounds. I'd prefer recording.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
the sound around here in these local venues in Seattle has been a lot better than my past experience.
Sure.
But still, it's like I'm kind of picky and a little bit of a control freak about all that stuff. So if and when I tour and get my name out there more, hopefully that'll be very kind of stripped down, simple setup. I don't drive. I mean, I have in the past, but I hate it, and I don't have a car right now. Part of the reason I came to Seattle, got public transportation. So if I was able to tour where I'm like taking the trains or buses, or maybe I'm touring with like one or two other people and they do all the driving, but I pay more for gas or other expenses.
Yeah.
That all sounds good. Also, the job I have now, I can do it on the road.
Oh, nice.
So hopefully I'll still have that when I'm going out there. So that's my thoughts on touring. That's one little aspect, I suppose. With my current group that I have, I'm cool to just play a show in the Seattle area, once a month, maybe once every month and a half, so I'm not exhausting people. And that's kind of as far as I'm getting with that. And then, what was the question again?
No, that's fine. I wanted to segue off of that a little bit. Is part of this, discovering the scene and discovering where you fit in it and all that stuff, and the culture of it in general.
Yeah.
One of the questions I like to ask, especially with new people coming into it, is how were you able to access other musicians? Like, how did you meet other musicians to play with?
Open mics are really good.
Yeah, you did?
I try to do an open mic either by myself, or I have my girlfriend Huimin singing with me sometimes, so I try to do an open mic every once in a while. I met a lot of people through the Stoneway Cafe open mic in particular. That's in Fremont. That's probably my favorite.
Okay.
There's a few others, maybe Columbia City Theater, and I don't know if they're still doing it, but the Sea Monster Lounge is a fun one. So open mic's been really good for that. And people I meet through there, they know other good bands in the area, so I'll find out about them that way. And yeah, I mean, there's just so many that it's so I'm not going to run out anytime soon.
So break down the players you're playing with right now, and how'd you meet those ones?
Craigslist,
as
in
well
a very
as
short amount of time.
Okay,
they're all Craigslist dudes.
That's good. That's a Craigslist success story. Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I'm like I hate Craigslist, but
I mean, I had a lot of difficulty with the Craigslist back in Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
There's just so many people coming out here.
Yeah.
So many people moving out here in the last year or two that do music, and they don't know anybody else either. So Craigslist is a perfect place for that right now.
Sure.
So they're all dudes that are very good at their instruments, and I'm always amazed that they feel that it's worth their time to show up and rehearse with me and do these shows.
Yeah.
Because I'm still doing all the creative decisions, and these are all my songs and all that, and they all have their own projects kind of aside from Niagara Moon. They're there for the music part, but then all the other promo stuff and everything beyond that, it's still all on me. For the time being. Whatever, that's fine. So yeah, I did, after I finished my album, which was mostly just recorded all parts myself, the rhythm I sequenced on my computer or whatever with samples, and it's a very kind of homespun electronic sounding sort of indie pop album. And after that, I wrote a lot more songs that kind of require more real instruments, real people. So these three guys have been really good for that now, and we're getting into recording and stuff. So I'm excited to hopefully finish an album with them on doing the rhythm section.
Cool. And since you live in an apartment that you can't rehearse in, where do you rehearse?
Substation.
Oh, okay.
The drummer has a space there.
I think it's called the Bird's Nest down below.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I've heard that too.
A lot of people think it's the substation, but I got to rehearse.
Next to the substation.
Next to it. Yeah, it's cool. Awesome. Well, that's cool. And so you do see yourself touring at some point, but it's a very like calculated kind of decision.
It's very easy for me to feel kind of overwhelmed and kind of stressed in that it's not worth it. And like I haven't really gotten that feeling so far here in Seattle, but it feels like it very easily could become something that doesn't feel fun or practical. Because a lot of people they lose their gear or they like run out of money. It just like, I don't want to be a rock star. I don't really care for a lot of aspects of like the touring musician lifestyle, but it is fun to perform for people, and it is a great way to get more of a following.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm okay with doing it if I can still like make some money and I can eat decent and I can get enough sleep. Then I'm open to the idea.
I wanted to find out. You said you don't drive right now.
Nope. That's part of why I don't mind Seattle so much. So I don't have to deal with the traffic.
How have you accessed being a musician and not driving? Like
everything I need to do or the places I need to go to, they're all just pretty close by.
Okay.
So the buses, or occasionally I'll get a ride from my drummer in exchange for, assembling and disassembling his drum kit.
Okay, cool. Are you feeling confident, like based on you've got here, you're now in Seattle.
Yep.
You got your band together. Are you're kind of like what you want to do with your musical expression? Are you feeling like you're pacing along at the rate that you wanted to?
Yeah, like I wrote a bunch of songs either right before I moved out here or like after I moved out here that were more oriented toward that band sound, and I'm pretty happy with the rate we've been able to work on them and get them ready to record. So that's been encouraging. So I'm happy about that. And then I also had some songs that I was working on after my first album that are still, again, that kind of computer-oriented thing. So I'm hoping to finish that up for an EP, maybe 4 or 5 songs, kind of in that fashion. Put that out before I put out an album of like the band songs.
Yeah.
So it's kind of where Niagara Moon is out at the moment. So it's going along at a good pace. I don't feel like I'm slowing down too much.
Yeah. And you mentioned as well playing shows like month and a half.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting, from my perspective, an interesting perspective on how often to play. Is there anything else behind that decision besides what you mentioned is you didn't want to burn people out?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking in mid-June, and in July I got 3 shows, which is kind of just opportunities kept coming to play, so I was like, sure. But I feel uncomfortable in the sense that I'm relatively unknown, and I can only ask my friends to come out and see me so many times. And if I don't bring people, the bookers aren't going to be so fond of that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like the guy who insists on playing somewhere, but I don't bring anybody with me, and then I get shut out after that. I'm kind of afraid of that sort of situation. Like I was saying, I only want to perform if it's practical. If there feels like a reason to do it. I don't want to just be performing to either nobody or people who like are tired of my stuff.
So what is it? Because performing can be a very strong motivation for musicians and artists to actually do the thing they do.
Yeah.
So with you, it sounds like that's
it came second.
It's a secondary. So what is the powerful motivation for you to make music? What is?
I grew up listening to the Beatles and Paul Simon and Bob Dylan, and then eventually I got over the baby boomer stuff and got into more current bands and everything, electronic music and classical music and some jazz and 80s and 90s and blah, blah, blah. I love consuming music, just especially on headphones. I just love really good production and arrangement and recording, just these audio worlds that you can inhabit, like this mind space. And I want to do something to be a part of that. I want to create my own sound universes. And I really love melodies. I would describe my music as very melody oriented. So I have this compulsion to just first make melodies and like working on lyrics, have some clever kind of catchy ideas and phrases that way, and then I want to just sculpt a really good sounding recording. It's just something I feel compelled to do, like the way a writer wants to keep a journal and write stories or whatever. I want to make these recordings, and then I came to enjoy performing as well.
Yeah. So what I've found from my own experience, there's like every step of the music making process is a vast art all within itself. Writing a song, performing a song, recording a song, and even mastering and all the just every level. So has there been for you, it sounds like you gravitate toward the production aspect of music making.
So maybe I used to be more than now, because I'm realizing there's only so far you can get with reverb settings and delay and all that kind of extra stuff. Like, the thing that comes first for me now is just a really good song. Like, there's an element that can draw you in right away, whether that's like a really good melody or an interesting rhythm or cool sounds or something. And then with that song, you got to produce it in the way that brings out all of its best qualities. And I'm very interested in that too. So what different parts you decide to put in. But this is all up to a point. Like, I'm not a mixing engineer. If I want to get into the heavy duty compression mixing stuff, I'm going to hire somebody who knows what they're doing. And
and you're okay with that? Or do you want to learn more on your own?
What I like to do is I get it. I have all the cool stuff going on in the song that I want to have, and I know the role of a mixing engineer at this point. So I just have someone come in at the end to just make sure the all the like fine detail stuff that is kind of separate from what I consider to be the creative process. The fine tuning the compression settings and just getting everything radio ready, so to speak. That whole polishing of a recording, that's something I leave to professional, but I get it to a state where they don't have to do much. Like, they can just bang it out in 2 hours or whatever, because I already have all my different parts and my I have the effects and everything the way I want, and then just leave the rest to them.
So I'm hearing
where I'm at with that.
I'm hearing writing and arranging is your like.
That's my bread and butter. I like to fit in harmonies when I can, even though I'm not the best singer. And I'm kind of at a crossroads, because I do want to keep up the kind of 70s inspired mellow, not quite soft rock, but kind of jazzy, kind of funky, just mellow tunes. Some of my big influences in that regard are like Andy Schaaf and Father John Misty and Harry Nilsson. So there's that element of what I do. But then I kind of have one foot in the more electronic world. I love a lot of 90s stuff and Massive Attack and Björk. And a lot of instrumental music, Brian Eno. So I want to get back to doing stuff like that too. And that is more of like a sound layering, production oriented thing. So I'm kind of keeping up both of those things, I suppose.
So Eating Peaches.
It's kind of a mix of those two, because it's very electronic-y, but it is also kind of retro pop songs.
And you were able to do the bulk of that on your own. Right? And you're saying now you want to take the band and record with the band? Is that what
I'm proud of Eating Peaches, but if I had to pick out anything I'm not as fond of at this point, you can only get so far with digital drums. If there's certain music where digital drums are very appropriate. And I am interested in the art of sampling and looping, and that's still something I want to work on. But if you have a song that really calls for a real drummer, it's hard to bypass that. So there are some songs on Eating Peaches that I kind of wish I had access to a real drummer for. So this upcoming, more band-oriented album, whenever it comes out, that's going to be the more organic. Bunch of dudes in a room playing.
So
sort of album.
With your approach right now, based on what you said about how you prep your songs, are you gonna try to do the beginning stages yourself again, or will you go to a studio?
Yeah. So I always go to studio to record a drum set.
Okay.
That's what I did with Otarehan back in Japan too.
Sure.
You get really, because that's the most important thing. You get really good professionally recorded drums.
Yeah.
Recorded in a good room with good gear. And I have nothing to do with that. I just play some crappy scratch tracks for the drummer to do their thing on. But then, half the time I record bass myself. At this point, though, I have a really good bass player. But like, we still record his bass parts at home. DI, guitarist, has his whole sound setup that he can record with at his house. And then I do a lot of MIDI instruments for keyboard stuff. And that's all on Ableton, my software of choice. I like to edit that very methodically and get everything I want. Start to kind of sculpt the sound, reverb and delay and all that sort of stuff. I get that all the way I want on my computer, and then I'll send it to an engineer to do the compression and fine tune the EQ and just make sure it doesn't sound amateurish.
Yeah.
And then maybe I sit with them in the room while they're doing that and answer questions. Maybe I don't.
Cool.
But that's kind of just at the tail end. That's a quick process, hopefully. And then I hire a mastering engineer as well.
This is part of why I like to start with the goal spectrum, is because oftentimes we sprinkle in, we get a sense of the genre spectrum by how the goal spectrum plays out. And I want to tell you my impression based on what you just told me.
Yep.
I'm hearing you go for a soundscapey kind of pop music, like pop rock music.
Yeah.
So like, that sound pretty close?
Yeah. I mean, words mean different things to different people, but that's a fine description. Yeah, it's, like I said, it's melody oriented. It's mellow. It's vaguely 70s-ish most of the time. I do try to keep it eclectic, though. Like, I want to incorporate a lot of different influences in it. It's keyboard-based, which I think distinguishes it a lot, because so many bands are centered around the guitar and what the guitar can do. And I can't play guitar. I don't write guitar songs.
Yeah.
So it has a more keyboard vibe. And I'm trying to blend a little bit of the old, a little bit of the new, that sort of thing.
Awesome. Well, like I said at the very top, or toward the beginning of this whole conversation, support has been something that's been very important to me, like exploring the idea of support. And it's just basically, I like to ask the musicians in particular that are on this podcast about how support has reacted or has been influenced in their own expression, and in the sense of just that, how have you felt supported in doing this process of being a musician through your life, essentially? And maybe, it could be through your life, it could be more specific to what's going on with the current situation, or it could be even an idea, like something that's not like a person that supported you, but an idea that's supported, that you felt support from.
Just what feels like support to me as a musician is just the idea that people are paying attention to what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And giving it any mind at all, because there's a bajillion things to distract you and take up your attention on the internet and elsewhere. So the idea that people want to spend some of their time thinking about what Niagara Moon is doing, that's pretty flattering. I have not sold that many copies of the album as is to be expected, but I have sold some, and that really means a lot to me when people want to spend some hard-earned cash to get my recordings, and people seem to be listening to it on Spotify and coming out to shows. That's always lovely to see that people come to listen to you play. So all that, that feels like support to me.
Cool. Awesome. I feel like we got it. Is there anything you want to tell people about the podcast or about your music that we haven't mentioned yet? And remember, we're like 2.5 months away from this publishing. So So
I don't know what my upcoming shows will be 4 months from now.
Yeah. But, what's the website again?
So, should I do all my plugs?
Sure,
at this
let's
point?
do it.
All right. So, if you want to look up Niagara Moon, NiagaraMoonMusic.com. And also, Niagara is spelled with 3 A's. Most people don't seem to know that, which has me regretting my band name. But it's NIAGARA, moonmusic.com. and that's kind of a springboard. You can go to anything else from there.
Yeah.
But my music is on every platform that people choose to use. And with the podcast, it's Talkin About The Passion, and that's talking with no G, which also seems to throw people off sometimes, understandably. But yeah, Talkin About The Passion is on all the popular podcast platforms. And what else? Yeah. Instagram, I'm at Niagara Moon Music. Twitter, I'm at TATP Podcast, or for Niagara Moon stuff specifically, that's Niagara Moon Music is the handle. On Facebook, I have pages for both Niagara Moon and Talking About the Passion, and that's probably the extent of my social media presence right now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot for being a part of this, letting me come over.
Yeah,
and
thanks for talking to me.
get your story on the podcast. I love it. We, like I said at the top, or before we restarted, we close it out with another song.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to put in one more of your songs.
All right. Let's do a song also from Eating Peaches that's called Nothing Is Coming From Me.
All right. Anything you want to mention about this one?
About this song, it's kind of a wall of sound, George Harrison inspired, kind of vaguely 60s-ish sounding thing. I'm very proud of it. It's a lot of fun to play and listen to. It's a very big sound, lots of harmonies, so hopefully it'll have you tapping your toes.
Okay, cool. All right. Thanks again, Thomas, for
Yep.
being a part of We're on the Street.
Thanks for having me.
Let's close it out with Nothing Is Coming From Me off of Eating Peaches by Niagara Moon. And remember, party at the Moon Tower.
You trusted me before you even knew me. You laughed when I said I was only joking. I had to make a sacrifice, but now you know I won't think twice. Why stay behind? The grass is always greener. I'd like to think I could dig a little deeper. Still I couldn't bear to repeat myself. Repeat myself, repeat myself, repeat myself. Do with me what you want. You're such a special kind, but I picked the wrong time. What does this all really mean? Nothing is coming from me, and it makes me just wanna tell all of the sleepless nights that just didn't feel right. When will this life be complete? Who could I possibly be? Stomp your feet like you never done before. I thought to run, but that's another story. Gotta keep the faith intact, or it's never coming back. Oh God, what don't we do just for survival? How did we get caught into the cycle? One thing I can tell you, it's embarrassing, 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 embarrassing. Just do with me what you want. You're such a special kind, but I picked the wrong time. What does this all really mean? Nothing is coming from me, and it makes me just wanna tell all of the sleepless nights that just didn't go right. When will this life be complete? Who could I possibly be?
All right, we made it to the end of another version of Word on the Street. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. A couple things, I forgot to mention a couple things at the beginning of the podcast that I meant to, but obviously that was a ginormously long intro, maybe the longest one I've done so far. So it's probably a good thing that I forgot, but the first thing is I actually booked my first show in San Diego, and it's I think it's booked. I'm still waiting for the... So this is how it played out. I emailed the venue. They said, I have these dates available. I picked one of the dates, and I haven't heard back yet. So I'm waiting for the, okay, you're on this date, and it's coming up quick. It's September 17th. So if you happen to be in San Diego on September 17th, it's a Sunday, and I won't be able to watch the Seahawks during that time, which I'm kind of disappointed about, but not so much because I'd rather be playing music. I'll be playing at a venue called Lestat's, and then there's a I think they call it West Music Venue or something like that. Anyways, it's a little theater type thing on Adams Avenue here in San Diego. So yay! So keep an ear out for that. I'm excited for it. There was more I wanted to say, but I forgot again. All wellsers. So anyways, if you want to continue this journey of the podcast, the Zim and A-Rock, all that good stuff, you can go to YouTube. YouTube is what I talked all about at the beginning. I do a bunch of stuff on YouTube as well. And one of the main things I do over there is a video journal, which I record every week, and I put out just the state of the Zim and A-Rock and the word on the street and life and what's been going on, and give you a jam of the week and just different things like that. So check it out. It's over on YouTube, youtube.com/thezimvideo. And if you're on the Facebook or the actual website for the podcast, WOTSpodcast.com, in the row of buttons, there's a video button, I think it says, and click it, and it'll take you to the YouTube channel, and you can check it out. All right, so that's it. That's all I got. I'd love to hear from you. I'll talk to you again soon. Till next time, peace.